Thanks, Phil. Now, it has won no less than 8 awards, including Best International Feature Documentary at the 25th Galway Film Festival and the Special Jury Award at the Palm Springs International Film Festival. That's award-winning documentary Plot for Peace, which premieres on SABC2 tonight. To tell us more about Plot for Peace, we're joined by South African industrialist and philanthropist Ivor Ichikowitz. Ivor, good morning, welcome.
Morning.
Let's talk about the inspiration behind Plot for Peace.
Plot for Peace comes out of an amazing project that we started some years ago called the African Oral History Archive. It's something that my foundation has committed a lot of resource, a lot of effort to. I felt that we were losing touch with our history. My son came to me one day and said, "Dad, tell me about apartheid." And I was horrified. I couldn't believe that this kid was asking me a question about something that was part of my DNA. That kind of was so much part of our generation, and I realized he was born in 1994.
Is he born free?
There's no ways he would understand the monkeys that we all carry on our backs. And I realized that my understanding of this country, my understanding of Africa is because I've had the privilege of knowing the people, because I've had the privilege of getting to know the unique individuals that made our history possible. And we started capturing this history, this oral history, a very African thing and a very important part of our culture. And Plot for Peace is just one of the stories that we captured that came out of all of this archive material we captured. But it's not the only one, and it's only the beginning of a long series, a long road that we're busy traveling at the moment.
Your inspiration then is quite personal because it was tied to your son asking you that question.
Absolutely.
But it goes on to win 8 awards. It travels the world. It's at Palm Springs International Film Festival. It gets the International Feature Documentary at Galway. You sit back and you go, this might be a universal issue, isn't it?
It is a universal issue. You know, the South African narrative, the South African story today is so relevant all over the world. The process of resolving an almost unresolvable conflict through negotiation is such a South African thing, but there's so many lessons in this for the rest of the world right now. And I think Plot for Peace resonates with people all over the world. I mean, it's about to go to China. Now, you would wonder why the Chinese would be in any way interested in what is really a South African story. But it's not a South African story. It's an international story.
And that leads me to my next question. So you're traveling around the world, you're showing this documentary. Are we all interpreting peace the same way? Or is peace something completely different to all of us?
You know, I think that every single human being in the world today is very focused on peace in their own environments. And peace is different everywhere in the world. The concept of peace in South Africa and in Africa is so completely different to the concept of peace in the Middle East, which is so completely different to the concept of peace in Russia and in Ukraine. But at the end of the day, all human beings want one thing and one thing only, and that is to live in a secure environment in harmony with their neighbors. And that's what Plot for Peace is about to a large extent.
It's an oral history. Who are some of the key figures that kind of help you narrate this documentary, the story?
Well, the African Oral History Archive has collected nearly 500 interviews over a 6-year period of prominent Africans who were involved in the South African struggle, but it's also collected stories from Cuba and from Mozambique and from Angola and from Zambia and from Congo. A whole lot of people who were players in our reality. Plot for Peace is narrated by Americans, it's narrated by Cubans, it's narrated by leaders of the frontline states. So there's so many people who have had a hand in our history, and South Africans don't know this. You know, there is a perception that the release of Nelson Mandela only came about because of a certain set of circumstances, a certain linear history. Nothing could be further from the truth. There were so many stories that led to his release, so many individuals involved, and they weren't all South Africans.
Some of the interesting things that you discovered that you didn't know, and were like, wow, that's an aha moment for me.
Every time I watch this movie, I find another aha moment. Every time I watch a little piece of the archive from these people who are starting to be so generous with their stories, I have an aha moment. We all believe that we know our history, but we don't. And if we don't get to know our history, if we don't kind of have these aha moments, how are we ever going to plot our future?
We have to start by plotting for peace. Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining me. And of course, don't forget, it's on tomorrow night. It's going to be an amazing viewing for you and your family. I probably think it will start a debate. That's South African industrialist and philanthropist Ivor Ichikowitz speaking to us about Plot for Peace, which is the showrunner for a series of political and historical documentaries produced by the African Oral History Archive. It is being broadcast on SABC2 during Heritage Month. It's on tomorrow night at?
Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock.
Okay, don't miss it. We take an ad break. Back after this.